Hi, everyone. Did you ever think about light and darkness? Well, today on our walk together, that's what we're going to talk about. Hello, and welcome to Our Walk Together. This is the place where we have a chance to listen and to learn from others on our walk. My name is Paul Long, and I will be your host, but also a fellow traveler. I'm glad that you're able to join me today on Our Walk Together. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Our Walk Together. Glad you're here today. We're going to talk today a little bit about light and darkness. Because, this time of year, it's getting kind of dark. We're recording this in the late autumn, and it's getting dark very early in the evening. And we're actually spending more time with darkness outside than we are with light. So I thought, a little bit about darkness and light might be something we could think about today. You know, Personally, I much rather would have it light and warm and all those kinds of things, but that's just not what this season is all about. I think sometimes we all sit in darkness or feel like we're in darkness and feel like nothing is going right. Everything in our lives is going wrong. Um, Nothing seems to be working out right. Nothing seems to be making sense. Nothing seems to be actually coming together the way we want it to come together. And that's tends to be a period of darkness, and it's pretty uncomfortable for us as we go through our days, not knowing and having that feeling, I guess is the best way to say it, of darkness. One of my favorite saints is Saint John of the Cross, and Saint John of the Cross is pretty much known by most people for his writings called "The Dark Night of the Soul" and his concept of that and what that's all about. And Saint John of the Cross was a Carmelite, and he was in the 1500s. I can't remember exactly what date it was, but he was in the 1500s. He's a Carmelite priest, and he met Saint Teresa of Avila shortly after he became a priest. Both of them were Carmelites, and they were talking, and Teresa was trying to reform her order, um, to come back to some of the more primitive, I guess, ways of the order. And John of the Cross was there, and he was agreed with her, and he vowed himself to live the primitive rule of the Carmelites. And he really did try to work with Saint Teresa of Avila and also within his own community to restore some of that original feelings, the original practices of the Carmelites. Well, you can quite understand. John worked for reform, um, and he came to experience the price of working for reform. He faced increasing opposition. He created misunderstanding. He experienced prosecution, persecution, and imprisonment uh, during the time of the Inquisition. He uh, he was considered to be if not a heretic, at least a troublemaker, and so he was imprisoned in a dark cell for a very long time. And month after month after month, he sat in that dark cell. And in that experience of being in that dark cell, being all alone, um, he came to know what the dying of Jesus was all about. He came to know that darkness that Jesus could have experienced, and when he died, and that whole darkness that surrounded that. Even we hear after at the time of the crucifixion, we hear in the scriptures that the whole world got dark when Jesus died. It's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful illusion and a wonderful, wonderful thing to think about. But John came to call that the dark night of the soul, that times when nothing was really working. But in that, there was a paradox, because in the darkness, in that dark night of the soul, he actually began to come closer and closer to God, and he actually came to life. The darkness became a purification, a time to prepare him for the glory and the ecstasy of the union with God. And a small quote here from John of the Cross in his writings on the dark night of the soul. And what he says is, and this is a little bit wordy, but it's the way he would have written and how it's translated. And he writes, although this happy night brings darkness to the spirit, it does so only to give it light in everything, and that, although it humbles and makes it miserable, it does so only to exalt and to raise it up. And although it impoverishes although it impoverishes it, it empties it of all natural affection and attachment, it does so only that it may be able to stretch forward. And he goes on, and eventually that stretching forward is to become attached and becoming attached to God in a very, very special way. There are times when we all face that kind of darkness. As I said earlier, nothing's right, everything is wrong. We try to reject it. No one seems to understand us. Nothing has seemed to be working just right. We have trouble praying. We have, all kinds of issues around our faith and around our lives, which can be very dark. But it's important also for us to remember that the light does eventually come. Eventually there's light. Even in the words of Jesus talked about the parable. He talked about light, and he talked about, that we are and the light of the world, and you can't hide that kind of light. Once it's there, and you can't hide it. It's always going to be there. It's kind of interesting to me. That whole experience of light and darkness and things like that is, among some of the Native American folks, a young man, when he's about to become a man, is sent off on what's called a vision quest. And there's various forms that takes and various ways that it happens. But basically what it is, it's a time when the person goes all by himself. There's no one else with him. He's all alone. And the goal is to experience vision, to somehow or other make contact with the spiritual world that can help give meaning and give direction to that young person's life. And it's a pretty scary thing, I would think. I spent a lot of times in the woods, and I'm not real comfortable being there all by myself. And they could have been there for several days and with nobody around, not even the promise that somebody was coming back to get them. But the point is that they were able to eventually experience that connection with spiritual reality, which could lead them to know what it was that they were supposed to do. Very much like a dark night of the soul. Even when I think about it, even Brother Francis, when he was near the end of his life, he experienced quite a bit of darkness, not only in the caves that he would go to pray, but also physically. It's known very well that when Francis was near the end of his life, for various and sundry reasons, he had a disease where he was losing his sight. He couldn't see. He was in darkness, and light actually hurt his eyes when he would try to look around. And in that darkness, Francis was able to then make an even greater experience of the Jesus in his life, to the point where he received what we call the stigmata and drew even closer and closer and closer to Jesus, because he was in darkness, but Jesus was the light of his life. And we all look for that light. We all look for that light to come into our lives, especially when things are not going well. And it never seems like it's going to come, but it does. We're going to very soon be in the season of Advent. And Advent is all about light and all about darkness. We hear during the whole course of the season of Advent about the darkness that's around, and how, we struggle in the darkness, and, we look for the light, and the light is not coming. And we learn, when we listen to those readings throughout Advent, that, we're kind of in darkness and we're looking for something until the day comes of Christmas. And on Christmas, everything is light. It's all light, because Jesus, the light of the world, has come into the world. God himself has become one of us. And that gives us light. That gives us a lot of hope that, even in our darkness, eventually God shines through. And just one final little thought is that, when I think about the name that I gave to this podcast, Our Walk Together, it was very, very intentionally done that way, because, I wanted to give the emphasis that, we are all walking on this path. We all walk together. And, when you think about that in terms of light and darkness, walking in the dark can be pretty uncertain. It can be pretty scary. We stumble over things when we're in the dark. We stumble and fall. We lose our way on the path, and so on and so forth. But it's much nicer, much easier, and much more fulfilling if we have someone walk through that darkness with us, and someone who's going to then be able to share in the light and the celebration of that light. So maybe we could think about some of those things, about what is the meaning of light and darkness for us. Are we in darkness today? Is our spiritual life in darkness? Do we need to do something to get ourselves to understand that sometimes that's necessary? It's necessary to be in that darkness for a while, not forever, but to be in that darkness where we can come to have no other distractions, but bringing our lives closer and closer to God. Thank you for being with me today. Well, the music means that our time together is at an end. I would like to thank you for walking with me today. It's been a great blessing. All of the information about the podcast is available on the website ourwalktogether.com. Please invite your friends to also listen. You are the best advertisement. And so, until we meet again, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord let his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord look upon you kindly and give you his peace.